Hey, Brandon.
We're doing, Rick.
We're doing all right. It looks like we're live here on LinkedIn, and I think we're streaming to YouTube and other platforms as well. So that's pretty cool. All right, we'll give it about 1 minute, and then we're going to get started. And we're talking about Microsoft Teams today. Everything Microsoft Teams today.
I would sing some hold music while we wait, but that would be a bad idea.
Oh, that would be a bad idea for sure. All right.
Um,
Let's see. We're going to sit and we'll take some questions here in a bit too, and see if some of our attendees ask questions about Microsoft Teams. Otherwise, we're going to get started and walk through um, how to make Microsoft Teams your phone system, and really what everything what's all the buzz about Microsoft Teams as a phone system, and can your organization really use Microsoft Teams as a phone system? I'm sure there's plenty of people that are listening to this and are using it today, because in fact the numbers are quite staggering on how many people are um, are using Microsoft Teams as a phone system today. So it'd be pretty exciting. Okay, let's see here. Let's see here. All right, click the third in. What's the click the third in? Am I doing everything right here? Make sure we're doing all right here. Got some moderators in the background, so give us just a second. I've got some moderators in the background that are going to help us navigate questions and things like that. The third one. There we go. This is what. There we go. That's what the notifications were about. I'm using the wrong display. Let's see. Okay, very good. Let's let's get started. We've got a few things to talk about, and we're going to show everyone that's watching how to use Microsoft Teams, and really just excited to kind of run through it all, because there's a lot to talk about. We put together a pretty basic discussion platform today, and we'll just run through it now. So let's talk about Microsoft Teams as a full-on UC platform, because I look at that, and people they're wondering, is Microsoft a phone system? Is it ready as a phone system? And the resounding answer is absolutely yes. Obviously with the application integration and with all the Microsoft products and the enhanced productivity, certainly the flexibility and cost savings that are available with Microsoft Teams, it gets pretty interesting, because organizations now are hitting that end of life, time frame with their existing physical, phone systems. And then obviously add to that, the pandemic has shown us that, hybrid working is something that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. So Brandon, what do you think about Microsoft Teams as a UC platform? I mean, you've been in this business a long time. I guess, we didn't talk about where we came from and how long we've been doing this as an organization, and then what we did before this. But ultimately, we both have, call it 20 years of experience in this space. And what do you
yeah,
think about Microsoft Teams as a phone system?
I think it's pretty exciting to see. And if we go kind of back into what you're talking about, our past, where TDM evolves into SIP trunking, and then you start looking into legacy PBXs moving into cloud-based PBXs, and the kind of the evolution of the soft phone. And for all those years, it's always kind of been this standalone device where if I want to talk to you, Rick Garcia, I'm in Denver, you're in the Seattle area, I got to pick up either a physical handset and dial your number, or I've got to have a soft phone that stands alone, separately from my collaboration software. So as we, transition into this look at Teams, most people are familiar with Teams as a collaboration tool for, traditionally chat, and then along came kind of the unification of bringing Office 365 product suite into it for real-time editing and collaborating in documents, to now what we're talking about, the full-on evolution of collaboration, where now it's a one app to rule them all. So
Yeah.
now when I
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, now when I want to talk to you, whether it's chat or phone or video. I pop up Teams, I click a button, and you're there, you're available.
Yeah, it's interesting if you think about all the different platforms that or collaboration tools that Teams brings in, and if we're just going down a basic list, right? It's your PBX, your telephony, your PBX, your video conferencing, your instant messaging, email, file sharing, mobility over your mobile phone, obviously soft phone on your PC. It just brings in so many components of your everyday work life, not to mention the applications that are tied into Microsoft as a platform. And then obviously it's your Windows, right? I mean, it's down to Windows, down to the core there. So it does bring in everything quite elegantly, in fact. So let's talk about Teams being a leader in the unified communication space. That's something that's maybe it's new for folks because they've got some understanding of maybe the competitors that have been out there. Certainly, if we're talking to IT people, they understand the legacy competitors, and I'm going to call them legacy, the physical hardware guys like the Avayas, the Mitels, the Shortels, the Cisco's, the physical hardware competitors out there. And then, all of a sudden you kind of move, and I'll call this a 12 to 15 years ago, this move into cloud telephony, and you and I both know that took longer to take hold than what anyone would have expected, because we've been in this business so long and we've talked about it for 15 years. It's like it's been amazing for us, right? It's but mainstream really started to understand this, I would say, about 2017, 2018, 2019, and then you have the pandemic hit, and that really brought to light how people needed to work differently. And that was really when things started to shift. But at that point, the collaboration tools started to take off. I introduced Zoom. Teams in its rudimentary form, in the early days, wasn't what it is today. And really, if you look back 2.5 years to today, we're in a much different place with Microsoft Teams as a platform than we were even 2.5 years ago. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. And obviously Teams had big competitors, and Slack probably being, traditionally the biggest from a collaboration standpoint. To your point, pandemic hits, and I think there was a lot of things. There was companies that were trying to figure out, how do we make this as easy as possible for our employees and our customers or whoever to collaborate with us. And it really boiled down to, you had the four big names: Zoom, Cisco, Microsoft, and Slack. And I think for a lot of people, Teams, it made sense because you're already in the Microsoft 365 environment. And then to watch how Microsoft dumped in just a ton of resources into evolving this product to what we believe is making them the biggest and the best.
Right, right. Absolutely. Let's talk numbers real quick. We'll get down to brass tacks and go numbers here for Microsoft Teams. I think the Microsoft financial sort of statements or financial discussion happened. I don't know, a week ago, maybe. I think it was last
Yeah.
week sometime.
Yeah.
And their earnings call, and they came out with, they have 280 million active users worldwide, and that 207 up from 270 the previous quarter. So not only is the consumption of Microsoft Teams, still growing, right? That Teams telephony is growing, because I think they said they added another 5 million incremental Teams phone users. Now, when you think about incremental Teams phone users, there's three different ways that those Teams users could be added, right? It's, I think they look at it from a direct routing perspective, from an operator connect perspective, and then also from the Microsoft Teams calling plan. So there's three different ways these organizations can consume dial tone. But still, if you look at 5 million users added over the period, it's pretty significant. I think they're probably up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 16 million PSTN lines, which is, when you look at the UCaaS market in as a whole, if you take the whole telephony market share, I think it's about 400 million seats, right? And if you look at UCaaS, that's been around for the last 20 years, and I think represents, about a 20 million user line sort of penetration number. And then if you look at Teams calling, sitting right at, 16, 17 million. They're literally almost as big as the entire UCAS market that is, over the last, 10, 15 years now, right? It's so what a from a growth perspective, the trajectory is just it's a rocket ship.
Yeah, I guess what I would say, and you're well aware of this, that you and I sit on calls every day, listening to whether it's an existing customer base or it's prospect customer base. The amount of interest and desire for people to transition to Microsoft Teams, and the amount of questions that they have around what we're going to talk about today. And we know firsthand many people are out there, and we've heard it said, we want to move to Teams, we maybe just don't know how. And so for anyone that's listening that might be interested, I would say hang on, because we're going to show you. And this system, it's fully featured, fully capable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Microsoft just increased their SLAs, I think, end of November of last year, and their SLA is 4 nines. And what that means is essentially they're allotting for about 53 minutes of downtime a year, which is, for some organizations, maybe that seems crazy, but I would basically ask you a question: has your physical phone system gone down for that long? Has your cloud carrier gone down that long? When you look at the reliability of other organizations, and if you take the largest UCAS competitor as an example out there, they're nowhere near 53 minutes, and from a an uptime perspective, and Teams, in fact, I think has been up. Uh, uh, their success rate, or their availability has been quite significant. So
Mhm.
compared to other competitors out there. Well, let's talk about the Teams Phone features really quickly. I'm gonna highlight a few of them, Brandon, and maybe you can help walk through a few of these things and show us some things online and share your screen, perhaps. But let's talk through some of the big features that organizations are really interested in, and certainly this drives deep into almost every business utilizes these features. So auto attendance, there's certainly the auto attendant capability, and auto attendants are, for those that don't know this stuff, auto attendants are, you call in, thank you for calling, press 1 2 3 for sales support, whatever it is, right? So those are your auto attendants. What's great about their auto attendants is that you can change them on the fly. You can change the verbiage on the fly, and there's a built-in text to speech component that allows you to build these things on the fly. So, because you've been in this UCAS world for a long time, Brandon, that greetings are not, greetings are created at a professional level, or greetings are created by the end users themselves. So having a built-in text to speech component is really nice, because customers can change this on the fly as needed, right?
Yeah, no, on that note, I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Perfect.
Let's see if I can decide which screen to share. You'll have to let me know if you see my Teams admin center. I
Looks like
believe
I
that's
see. Yeah,
I
looks like
believe
I
that's
see
the
you.
one.
Let me add this to the stream here, and there we go. I
Yeah,
think I've got
there
to
we go.
click a
Yeah,
button
good.
there.
Yep. Let's see if I go full screen. It looks much better. Yeah. So for those that maybe haven't seen the Teams Admin Center, the other thing that I would call out around kind of just the feature richness of Teams as your all-in-one collaboration is you really have a one-stop shop for all of your settings, configurations, and policies, and whether that's compliance or just corporate requirements. You're now able to, as the admin, come in and set up your destiny around how your chat works, how your Teams app integrations work, where your messaging policies are allowed to be applied, whether that's mobile, web, client, etc. And then you got the whole PBX phone system all built in there as well. So again, it becomes kind of this one-stop shop for your whole collaboration journey. So what we're talking about right now is just specific to the Teams phone feature sets, and the one that Garcia just mentioned is auto attendance. And I'm in a demo account, so there's nothing super fancy about this. But again, this is all click, drag and drop, plug and play type configuration where you just follow the team's wizard and you can customize to your heart's content, and you can get as complex as you need to, but Microsoft walks you through the entire process as you move through the checklist. Um,
I was going to ask, is
so
that the checklist on the left hand side there? That's the progression you have to build your auto attendant there.
yep. So you're going to give it a name, assign it, a phone number based on a resource account, um, set your time zones, and then as you go through it, you begin to build your call flow. And this is where you were just touching on, if you want to just quickly set something up, or you want the dynamic capability of that text to speech in your auto attendant and your call routing and queuing. This is where you would set it up. You obviously can have your professional speech files if you want them, or you can simply type it all out and then build the instructions based on what you've typed out. So as an example, if you were to dial this number, you would hear this read back out to you, and then you can press or say 1 for sales, 2 for billing, 3 for support, etc. And then you would build your routing logic around that. For demo purposes, it's just going to a single user, but you could send it to a call queue that then does hunting to multiple users, or down to shared voicemail boxes. Again, how you build it out is based on your requirements as a business.
Brandon, what does it take to build it out? So if you had to guess, if someone that was an IT person that was looking to build a phone system, and let's just categorize the entire phone system for a normal business. Let's take a law firm. You're a 100-user law firm. You've got a daytime auto attendant, a nighttime auto attendant. Maybe you have a call group for accounting and billing. Maybe you've got a small call group for every lawyer and the admin, they're not admin, but their assistant, maybe their group. So what do you think a full phone system takes to build for an IT person that's relatively familiar with Microsoft, maybe not phone systems, but Microsoft?
Uh, I would say it's kind of twofold, right? Someone that's familiar with a legacy PBX that understands auto attendance, call queues, hunt groups, round robin or sequential, or whatever your call priorities are in those hunt groups. They're probably going to be able to build it out much quicker in Microsoft, as long as they have the access and they follow the logic of, how Microsoft walks you through it with the wizard. A Microsoft IT guy, he's going to be able to do it, but I would say maybe not as quickly as someone that has legacy PBX knowledge, if that makes sense. But Microsoft has done a great job, even for someone who doesn't necessarily have that PBX knowledge, that even they're going to be able to build this out, because it's going to be very straightforward as they walk through the wizards. And then the thing about it is Microsoft even prompts or gives you prompts for more information. Like if you're not sure what it's doing, you can hit the little info and get the prompt on, oh, I'm going to add my dial menu options, and I can figure out what each step is doing as I'm building out that auto attendant or the call queue. So they've done a great job of kind of hand holding you through the process.
Nice. Nice. And then you mentioned call queues, and let's talk about maybe that same law firm that I'm just using as an example. Maybe they need call recording. What are some cool things about the call recording components here in Teams?
Yeah, I mean, Teams recently, I don't know if it was last September, October, they brought native call recording right into the Teams phone ecosystem. So you can now record calls on the fly. You can set up policies around call recording, and you can even transcribe those recordings. So you can take that recording, you can keep it in the audio format, but at the same time you can also transcribe it to speech to text, and you can then have a searchable repository of that recording.
So hold on a second. So I'm a lawyer here, and I'm on the Teams phone system, and all my calls are being recorded for me. Maybe I like it, maybe I don't like it, but the transcription's available. So if I'm on a client call, as an example, and we go through, not a deposition, but we go through a discussion, and I've got a searchable text base for information associated. So maybe I never have to take notes again. Then is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially, if you set up your retention policies and you organize it within your SharePoint, yeah, you've got a whole fully recorded and transcribed to text so that you can search through all of that documentation.
So I don't miss a billable hour ever.
Sounds like you want to be a lawyer now.
All right. Let's talk about making and receiving calls from any device, because it's something that we've been using it for so long now. Maybe we take it for granted, and let's think about, maybe, I don't know, a portion of the businesses out there are still struggling with the technology to figure out, how do I get my phone calls in different locations? How do I get my phone calls on different applications? Things like that. How does that work?
But I mean, to kind of break it down to just a very simple answer, once your phone, I should say, is enabled within the Teams ecosystem. So now I'm going to pull up my client just to show you. So I move over to, you're now looking at the Teams client on my desktop, and I've moved my phone service over to Teams. I can now take and I can, if I want to bring a legacy phone, a SIP enabled phone to Teams, I can do that, and I can show you here in a second. But obviously, from an application perspective, Teams already has full mobile support and they have full desktop support. So now I can take my phone call from any of these devices, assuming I've got the Teams application installed. Um, for more of a traditional setup, Teams in the admin center allows you to bring a whole plethora of different devices, but specific to the user, you're going to bring in some kind of phone, and you're going to tie it to a user. So you can see that same user that I was just showing the desktop app on has a Yealink MP56. It's not currently signed in, but if signed in, I now can receive that same phone call on that device, and Teams has it set up by default to simul ring all the devices at once. And then from there, you can even set up call forwarding rules where, let's say you want it to go off to your cell phone or another PSTN number for whatever reason, you can also set that up. So lots of flexibility in the ecosystem.
So essentially, I can have. Let's break this down here. I can have a physical phone on my desk. I can have a soft phone on my computer, and I can have a mobile device, mobile application on my cell phone.
Correct.
Other than that, is there any other device that is important to understand? I mean, that seems like that's pretty well covered. Physical device, and if you notice the color of my hair, it's gray. So, what that means is essentially, I've grown up with a physical phone on my desktop, and I like the physical phone, although I've weaned myself off of it in the last 6 months. But so, so a physical phone, so a cell phone application, and then my PC application. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I can make calls on any device from any location. That's pretty exciting. Pretty easy
Yep.
too.
Yep. Yep. Your phone now follows you because you're, assuming you've got data on your cell phone, your PSTN connectivity through the Teams ecosystem is always there.
What's interesting, I don't mean to interrupt you, but what's interesting is that every now and then you still get requests for something called hoteling, right? Or I forget what else it's called, but it's like hoteling, or oh, boy, I'll have to think about it. Where someone signs into a desk, right? Here's a physical phone that sits on a
Hot
desk.
desking.
Hot desking, thank you. Someone signs in. So every now and then you still get requests for hot desking. Well, this is just sort of that's sort of the nature of Teams, essentially, right? I mean, you can have a phone that's in a common area, let's just say, and could you then apply your phone, if it's that easy? Could you apply your user to that particular device?
Yeah, I mean, like this Yealink MP56, it's not set up as a common area phone necessarily, but it's as simple as logging in and logging out with that same username and password that you're used to for logging into Microsoft Teams. And Microsoft has actually taken it a step further, and they allow code driven pairing. So you come in, you punch in a code, and I can't get into the specifics right at the moment, but it will automatically log your user into that device and pair it to your phone number or to your phone service. So hot desking becomes pretty easy, even if it's a physical device. Obviously, if it's not a physical device, that just becomes as simple as, your Office 365 login on the computer that sits at that desk, and away you go.
Oh, cool. That's very cool. I didn't even know that. See, that's fantastic. Let's talk about uh, the integration with, let's say, Outlook and some of the applications. I mean, what can you tell us about those things?
That pretty much just comes native if we're talking about, I want to look at my Outlook calendar. Again, remember, we're signing in with your, Microsoft 365 credentials, that's tied to your email, that's tied to your, the Outlook calendar, that's tied to all of these different collaboration pieces, all the way down to, you know SharePoint access, so that you can start collaborating on, say right from Teams. I'm starting a brand new Excel workbook, and I can very quickly then share this out to, say, you, Rick, and say, hey, come help me work on whatever this is that I'm building. And it's fully integrated right inside of this app. And, I'm going to take a step back, because you were talking about, hey, I'm really used to having a physical phone, and, I kind of like the security of having that physical phone. I'm not quite as gray as you, and what I'll tell you is, I hate physical phones. I haven't touched a physical phone. I have one on my desk, but I haven't actually touched it in years. I prefer having everything as a software based application, so that I can work on my desktop, or I can transition to a mobile app like Teams allows. But uh, more importantly, as Microsoft has evolved this product to the point that it is, what I can tell you is, 80% of my day is spent collaborating, and now I don't have to leave. This is, I can come in here and I can work completely out of Teams, and I never have to leave the Teams ecosystem, because I'm already tied to everything else I need to be tied to. Um, so it
That's
makes it
fan.
really, really powerful.
Yeah, staying in a single application and working your day, whether you're collaborating or sending messages or scheduling meetings, or working in documents, it certainly makes it a real efficient tool to use in an organization.
Exactly.
Let's talk about some licensing here, because one of the things that people, when they're looking at the comparison between what they've had in the past, and I'll go physical phones and or UCAS applications, right? The rings and advantages and of the world. They look at what they've had, and the cost structure of either one of those services, and break down what the different cost components are. I'll talk about some licensing options here, but let's talk about the cost components of, let's say, a legacy phone system. What are some things you can think of that someone's paying for if they're on a legacy phone system?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how big they are as an organization, but they're going to be paying for, what I'll call the capex, the capital expense of that phone system, right? They're buying hardware, they're maintaining that hardware, they're buying, it could be they're co-located somewhere to host that hardware. Maybe it's in their own office, but they're still, consuming power. They're still paying facility costs to physically host that equipment. Um, and, and then on top of that, they're probably buying that hardware from a Cisco, a Mitel, and a Avaya, and so they're paying a software component on top of that. And with that software component comes licensing. So a could be a per user license, or a volume based license type subscription. And then on top of that, they're paying probably some kind of yearly maintenance fee to that vendor to keep that, the hardware under support. Let's say your NIC card goes bad, or something goes bad, you got to replace
Yeah.
that hardware. Let's say there's software bug, They need support getting that fixed. And then of course you're paying for, you know, resource time to maintain and manage that entire system. Whether it's you're outsourcing that to a MSP or a partner, or you've brought it in house and you're maintaining that. So lots of expense just there. Not to mention, we haven't even talked about the telephony piece of the expense, right? They
Yep.
still have to come to a G12 to consume the PSTN access and the telephony portion to actually enable that PBX on prem to actually function the way they need it to.
Yeah, and that's so maintenance, licensing associated with that platform, the PSTN connectivity you still need as an example, right? Any support that needs to come along, any
Mhm.
management of the platform, and then maybe even some, an FTE or two, right, to manage a
Mhm.
physical phone. That doesn't take into account, obviously, if there are multi locations and your system is legacy and not necessarily aggregated to a data center. So now you've got telephony that you're buying in multiple locations and maintenance for each of those locations and licensing for each of those locations, right?
Right.
And then the support that goes along with it. So the cost of a physical phone system, right? I mean, just keeps rising. The bills just keep coming in from multiple vendors and multiple services that it takes to keep those things active and live. Not even to mention any moves, adds, and changes that need to happen. And if someone in the organization manages it, but maybe isn't capable of doing it, then they're opening tickets with that, so with a said vendor, and maybe their maintenance covers it, but if not, they're under a, here's an hourly charge associated with it, things like that, or a truck roll if needed, right? So there's that stack of bills that comes in with that legacy provider. And then let's talk about what is if you're looking at Teams, you're talking about really two components, and there's two different versions that we should probably talk about. There's the direct routing component, right, which is more typically a physical device, either in a data center or on site, or and then there's operator connect. Let's take on direct routing for just a second and talk about what are some licensing components or things that are needed for direct routing versus not versus operator connect just yet, but let's talk about operator connect or direct routing.
Yeah, I mean, direct routing, again, depending on the organization, could be almost as much to maintain and just as much cost, depending on if they're going to take all of the SBC responsibility on themselves to set up that direct routing to enable the Microsoft phone ecosystem. Again, you're still deploying, maybe it's physical SBCs, maybe it's virtual SBCs, but you're still paying that capital expense. And again, you're still paying for the licensing that goes with it on the application side, and then the call session licensing that goes with it. So very similar cost structure if the company decides to take on direct routing themselves. Obviously, there's another option where you can pay a partner or a vendor like G12 to do the direct routing as a service, which also becomes very similar to Operator Connect, at least for G12's model. Um, but you still are going to need the Microsoft licensing component, regardless of whether you want to go the direct routing path or you want to go the Operator Connect path.
Yeah,
That piece
yeah.
is going to cost the same no matter what.
Right. So then if I think about Operator Connect, so I'm an organization and I'm thinking about Operator Connect and the Microsoft Teams phone system. Now let's just talk about the Microsoft Teams phone system. Like we understand as at G12, for example, that the real allure here is the Microsoft Teams phone system, right? We have several ways to feed that system, to deliver PSTN connectivity to it, as you were just discussing, right? The direct routing option, if we want to include direct routing as a service, or Operator Connect. There's a lot of direct routing customers out there. Direct routing has been around a long, long
Mm-hmm.
time, and it's traditionally deployed by the Microsoft partners, right? So if it's traditionally deployed by the Microsoft partners, then they're likely installing some bit of technology for you, and you are paying the capex associated with delivering that service. You are paying licensing for that SBC if you're taking on the management of that
Mm-hmm.
SBC, not to mention the actual SBC itself, right? And then certainly the annual maintenance that goes along with that SBC. So there's a lot of cost components. You're right. It's almost as much as a physical phone system when you deploy direct routing. And I think there's a lot of legacy direct routing customers out there because they were early adopters and did integrate Microsoft Teams, via a Microsoft partner. And that was the product that was available. Now we've got a whole new set of APIs and ecosystem that Microsoft deployed last year in Operator Connect, right? And now you look at Operator Connect, and really it's broken it down quite simply now to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but a license and a PSTN user. Is there?
Yeah. I mean, listen, the direct routing component is, when we come back down into our Teams admin center, if I want to set up direct routing, even if it is to say G12's direct routing as a service, I've still got to come in and build the SBC connectivity to the partner or to my own SBC, right? There's still a bit of manual setup. There's definitely been strides to automate that. But what's really cool about Operator Connect, to your point, is we've spent the time doing all of the development and automation with Microsoft into the API ecosystem, so that the advantage for this is that it really is you click three buttons, and I'm simplifying this, but you click three buttons, and as a client or a customer of G12, I'm up and running in just a matter of minutes. Assuming my licensing is correct, I go sign up with G12, and boom, 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 I'm making phone calls. It's
That's
really that easy.
that's fantastic. So two cost components then. So it's that easy. So you can activate it right from your Teams admin panel, because we allow the automation that you said that ties to Microsoft. Real quickly, can you touch on the tie to Microsoft, the physical infrastructure connectivity of Microsoft? So if there's organizations that are listening that are healthcare related or that are financial, in the financial sector, why don't you talk about the security of being in the Operator Connect ecosystem and being physically tied to Microsoft?
Yeah, and that's the one piece I didn't bring for screen share. I don't have the diagram handy, but one of the big things that makes Operator Connect hugely beneficial over traditional direct routing is direct routing, anybody can do it over the internet. And you're at that point, you're at the best effort of the connectivity between SBC and Microsoft. Whereas Operator Connect, as an operator, G12 being in the ecosystem, we have to go through a certification process, and we have to meet the requirements of being an operator within Microsoft's ecosystem. So one of those requirements is a very high level of redundancy that's required out of each of our data centers, where we need to have direct connects into the Microsoft network. So two 10 gigs into one geo within Microsoft, and then the next geo 10 gigs into that, and then setting up that redundancy so that you can take failures in multiple locations and still be up and offering Microsoft's SLA of that 0.99. So really, really robust and really, really resilient.
So let me take a second and talk about some licensing really quickly. The licensing component isn't as complex as some organizations think. There's some organizations with a call it a business basic license. There's organizations with an E3, an A3, and an E1. There's lots of, there's a lot of complexity in the licensing, certainly. But let's talk about what's needed, the component that's actually needed for Microsoft, the phone system to work itself. So the Microsoft phone system requires a license, and it's the phone system add-on is what's required there. And the phone system, if you are an enterprise, so if you're sitting on the E license series as an example, and you have E3 and below, the phone system add-on is $8 a month typically. So there may be some slight variation based on who you're buying it from, but it's about $8 as the add-on. If you are an A3 or if you're an E5 as an example, that piece is already included. So if you have an E5 license, you are already paying for the phone system component within the Microsoft Teams platform, and literally just need to add PSTN calling for your users. That's quite simply It's why it's that easy.
And
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I don't remember the numbers, but I remember, we were socializing not too long ago about the statistics within Microsoft of how many enterprises out there are paying for the E5, and they're not even aware that they have an active phone system, within their reach, within their own ecosystem, and they don't know it. And maybe it's just education of things like this this live stream where we're like, hey, you've got a phone system and it's better than what you probably are already using.
I know the answer to that, by the way. So I think the numbers stack up like this: 45 million organizations or users out there of the 280 have an E5 license already. 15 million, or it's up to 16 or 17 million, but call it 15 million users have PSTN connectivity. So you're looking at 30 million people out there. Are you one of them? Are 30 million
Yeah.
organizations or users out there have the Microsoft Teams phone system built into their existing Teams tenant right now, but aren't taking advantage of it? That's a pretty staggering number. I think that's why Microsoft's looking at this, going, there's a significant opportunity for Microsoft to take some big market share in this space, and deliver on the phone service, because it's quite good. I mean, it's bottom line, it's quite good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and for those that are already sitting on that license, the question really becomes, who are you paying? If it's not your own phone system, who are you paying that? Could be $10 to $25 a month per user. Where maybe in our ecosystem, we reduce your cost by half or more, because now you've got the full phone system, and we enable that phone system for you.
yeah, yeah. So back to the licensing for just a second to put a pretty bow on this thing. It's $8 for those users. Now, here's an interesting one: nonprofits. If there's any nonprofits out there listening, any nonprofits that are Microsoft Teams organizations, you know that you get discounted licensing from Microsoft. And when I think about a nonprofit, I think about a way for them to drive cost savings. And I look at the Microsoft stack. If they're a Microsoft organization, they get the phone system piece. I want to say it's $3.20 a user. It's somewhere around there at so pretty heavily discounted from the $8 a user from the E series license. So if you're a nonprofit organization out there, and there's lots of healthcare organizations and lots of other organizations that are just nonprofit, that you have a phone system, you might be even paying for that phone system, and or if you have the 5 series license, the A5, G5, E5 as an example, but just to add that add-on, if you're a nonprofit, is really inexpensive compared to what you're likely paying in managing a physical platform. And even if you're a UCAS customer today with a Ring, a Jive, a Vonage, an Nextiva, any of those guys, you look at the cost savings potential by just adding that phone license piece onto your existing Microsoft stack, and then engaging with a G12 as an example to deliver Operator Connect. It's pretty significant from a savings perspective. Okay, so that's the licensing piece. Let's talk about the calling plan. We've talked about Operator Connect, we've talked about direct routing and the calling plan. We've talked about those things, but let's talk about not the calling plan. But let's talk about why Operator Connect really. We've you know given some components of the old way, like direct routing that people used to connect to Microsoft. We've talked about um, Operator Connect. What are some real sort of key features, about with Operator Connect that you see, Brandon?
I think it kind of goes back to what I touched on here a little bit ago. It does remove some of that manual complexity of setting up. You know, let's say if we're comparing direct routing to Operator Connect, it it removes that complexity of some manual configuration. So at least with our Operator Connect ecosystem, we're able to automate and give our clients tools to self-activate phone numbers to users, assign and automate that assigning to the user, so that the user just has to log in and their phone system or their phone is just working. um, So I don't know if that's where, we want to touch
That's
on
the
PCAP
angle.
or.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's what if a customer is watching out there and wants to is like, well, I'm the team's admin, and maybe I'm a 100-person organization, and I'm the team's admin, and I'm watching this, and I want to get started. How easy is it to get started? Or if I'm a CIO and I'm listening, how easy is it for me to get started?
It's here at G12. We've worked pretty hard on trying to come up with some really basic steps to help really anybody that has the proper access into the Microsoft admin portion to really start that process. And there's really only two or three things at a high level that need to be done. One is obviously from a G12 perspective, if you want to test G12, we give you the avenue for a free trial. You can come to our website as I'm showing up on the screen, and you can find the start free trial button. And what that's going to do is it's going to launch you over to G12's Operator Connect portal, where you would fill out the self-registration. You're going to agree to our terms, and once you've done that, you're going to get access into, and bear with me, I got to find my other screen here.
I'm going to share that in the comments too, so people have access to that link right now. So it should be easy to comment or to show in the link there.
Yep. So once you've registered into G12's Operator Connect platform, this is really where the magic begins to happen. And really, the only main thing you need to do is this one's already got Operator Connect added to the services, but as a new customer, you would click to add the service. You would click on Operator Connect. I'm going to get an error because it's already added, but you would then get prompted to log in with my admin level Microsoft credentials. That's to your admin center, so that's back to over here. And then we have all the API integration done to come in and build the connectivity and the relationship between your Microsoft tenant and our automation platform. Once that's done, it really is just as simple as you go out, you grab some phone numbers from G12 and you assign them to users. And as soon as you do that, we will automatically provision those numbers up into your phone number inventory in Operator Connect. So these same numbers live over here in this list. And if I've assigned them to a user, we have the visibility to the users to know whether they're not licensed, meaning they don't have a phone license, or they are licensed. And if they are, if you've assigned a phone number, then we will automatically go push that phone number to the user. So the example that I just highlighted is this OC user 1. So once you've activated, while this loads, once you've activated the number here, we push it up to Microsoft, we activate it to the user. I'm not really sure why this isn't loading.
It's because we're live, Brandon.
It's because we're live. Demos can never go smooth. But ultimately, you see that it's assigned to the user, and then back here on the client, you can see on the client's dial pad that number was automatically provisioned and activated to that user. That at a high level, that's what you do, right? You go give us permission to connect to your, first you sign up, give us permission to connect to your team's tenant. You get phone numbers from us and you assign them to users. And as soon as you're done with that, you're making phone calls.
That sounds way too easy. Let's is there's
It
something,
sounds
there's
too
got to
easy,
be.
but that's it. I mean, obviously, you from a phone system perspective, customers need to take into account: do they need auto attendance? Do they need call queues? Do they need that? But we even offer templates for that, where we can go out and we can give and we can create custom templates. But we provide some basic templates. You need a basic auto attendant, we can do that for you. We hit create, it pushes that config out to your team's phone system, and then you can go tweak it as you need. It's really that simple.
I was going to say we make it really really easy. It looks like to activate Microsoft Teams, Operator Connect, and Teams Phone for organizations. Okay, so let's talk about I guess some of the services that G12 offers, because everyone's on the call, everyone's that's watching this is going to want to know, well, what does it actually cost? And I think you need to take into account obviously what kind of license you have, so that you understand the licensing component of Microsoft, the Microsoft Phone. It is like we said, if you're an E series license, the add-on is $8 a user. And then yeah, for the licensing of Microsoft Teams, that is paid to Microsoft. If you're an E5 subscriber, you already have it built in. An A5, you already have it built in. Nonprofits, obviously, you guys get discounted pricing, and I think it's somewhere around $3.20. So if you look at that, and I'm looking at the G12 pricing schedule right here, essentially, I look at that and I go, I can basically add a phone line PSTN calling for as little as $1, Brandon.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you're a low consumer of phone service, right, you just need a phone number to maybe receive the occasional phone call. Yeah, we're going to offer you dollar a month per user. You can have a fully active phone service. We're going to charge a per minute rate, but again, if you're not using a lot of minutes, it's a really cheap entry point to a phone system.
Wow. And then the 650 looks like that's unlimited calling inbound, outbound, US and Canada. It looks like there's a 911 registration attached to that, and the DID comes with that as well. So it's like you've got everything built in at that $6.50 model. So if I'm 100 users, let's just break this down. If I'm a 100 user organization and I've got the $8 licensing that I need to pay because I'm not an E5 subscriber just yet, so I'm at, I'm adding $8 to 100 users there, and then I'm adding $6.50 to 100 users over here. So basically, I'm, $800, and that buys me the phone system from a licensing perspective, and then I'm paying PSTN connectivity of $6.50. Brandon, if I don't have experience supporting Microsoft Teams, setting up Microsoft Teams, getting the questions answered for Microsoft Teams, if it can serve as my phone system, what happens then?
We can take care of you. We've got certified Microsoft Teams engineers on staff that we sell an additional license on top of this. I don't I think it's 450 a user per month,
Correct.
I believe.
Yep.
So on top of either of these plans, you add another 450 a month per user, and we will fully manage, maintain, build, troubleshoot everything. We will own your phone system from ground up. You
Got
can
it.
just sit
So,
back and eat the popcorn, drink the coffee, whatever, and watch us do the work.
and we'll take care of it for you. Okay, that's awesome.
That's
So
right.
we can do it at that, and then certainly if I opted not to take the $4.50 and I opted to really just kind of figure things out on my own, could you help in that case as well?
Yeah, we can. We've got our certified engineers that are here to support and answer your questions, and then on the side, if things are start to get really complex, we do offer professional services where we can temporarily step in and really help take you to that really polished phone system.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. What other questions do businesses have out there that you think are important to answer? I mean, we both run into this. Me from a, from a new customer acquisition marketing perspective. Certainly a lot of interaction there. But what are some real technical things that people maybe get hung up on, or some real technical things people that are, let's say, legacy phone guys, think that Microsoft Teams isn't that system that can be, fully contained. What are some things you run into there?
This is where I'd probably need one of my engineers that interacts with these guys every day to give me very specifics. But I'll say that probably some of the big ones are going to be around compliance, right? So, can if we're doing call recording, can we store those call recordings and those messages into compliant zones within geographic regions, right? And again, this is the Microsoft ecosystem. So it's SharePoint driven. The compliance is within Microsoft, and it can be set up to be as compliant as you need it to be. So that's one. Security I think is another one. How am I making and receiving these calls? So it comes down to how we encrypt the RTP, how we encrypt the signaling, all of that stuff, all the way to we get asked about, and I'm going to selfishly kind of promo this a little bit, but we get asked about SMS, like, hey, my last phone system does SMS, and I've gone to Google search, and I can't see where Microsoft supports SMS. And while they do not natively, what G12 can tell you is we're proud to announce that we can support SMS as part of the Operator Connect ecosystem through an integration that we've done. So we can bring SMS, and we can do it through an app integration, or we can build it into a team chat where SMS can flow back and forth between the Teams application and what I'll say the traditional SMS network that sits out in whether mobile operators or A2P operators.
So
So those are some
that's
of them.
that's really exciting. I mean, the text messaging for particularly those organizations that are, maybe you're scheduling appointments and you do want a text component to notify customers, or if clients are sending, text messages to individuals within the company, you can migrate that off of your cell phone as an example, or maybe you
Yeah.
did have it with your UCAS provider, and now Teams doesn't offer it. Well, G12 does offer it built into the Operator Connect
Yep.
ecosystem here.
And probably one of the big questions we get across all of our products is, the ability to do multi-factor authentication via SMS for shared teams. Meaning, I've got a team of 10 people that are getting in and out of a system, and they need the ability to retrieve a single two-factor authentication code depending on who's trying to access the system. I won't get into the security cringe around that, but we can support it. And listen, while I don't necessarily recommend it, I get that businesses have requirements, and that might be a limitation to what they need. And this is one way that we can bring requirements like that right into kind of a native Teams experience, where now I've got SMS enabled to a team that I can turn into a group, where I can now add those 10 members to that same group, and they can retrieve multi-factor authentication codes.
Wow, that's awesome. One thing that we run into from a pre-sales perspective is if I've run a facility, maybe I run a hospital as an example. I run a hospital, I run a bank facility, I've got facility components that require some sort of analog device, you know, integration, right? Whether it's a doorbell, a door intercom, an overhead pager, even a door actuator to let somebody in, as an example. I already said overhead paging, those sorts of things. Those are the components that the questions that we get asked. And then obviously, what about faxing? And maybe I've got some fax lines that I need to address, and just other components. Those are things that we get asked in from a pre-sales perspective. How do you guys handle that in on the engineering side?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few ways we can do it, but if we're staying purely, Microsoft native, if you will, Microsoft has plenty of partners out there that design and certify SIP compliant devices for Microsoft. So your traditional ATAs of the world, where you're hooking up those analog devices, whether it's a fax machine or a doorbell or overhead system, whatever the nature is, we can bring in those SIP devices, and especially if they're certified.
We'll see if that's Brandon that's stuck, or is it me? We'll find out. So let's do this here. We're at about an hour.
Or
So, oh, sorry. Well, you broke up for just a second there, Brandon.
yeah, I think I might have hiccuped, but yeah, we can bring in legacy connections into SIP devices that are then paired to the Microsoft ecosystem.
So the question is then, can Microsoft Teams be your full unified communication platform in just about any scenario for a business?
I actually think so. And, I think 90% of the businesses out there aren't even going to touch on some of these things we even talked about, right? It's going to be a really powerful system for any customer or any enterprise, and even those that need the special one-offs. Microsoft can do it.
Well, we haven't even talked about the new announcement about AI being pulled into all the Microsoft tools. So if you can imagine some AI voice, being built into Microsoft Teams, maybe to take appointments and to engage in some of the business complexities or the business operations that are standard. Some of those efficiencies that businesses will begin to see within the Microsoft Teams ecosystem. It's pretty exciting. Well, we've touched on our hour, Brandon, and I want to make sure that we're timely in terms of starting and stopping. So, everyone that's out there listening, follow us so that you can get Teams updates, Teams phone updates. Follow G12, follow me, Rick Garcia and Brandon Bradley. We're going to be doing Microsoft Teams demos and live shows every single week. So, every single Friday, at 12 noon, you can learn how to make Microsoft Teams your phone system. So be sure and stop by, ask your questions live. We'll happily answer those questions. Brandon, any final comments there?
Go sign up for a free trial if you're not already signing up now.
Very good. Everyone, thanks so much. Take care. Brandon, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Take care.
Take care.